Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. I'm going to talk about how a court rejected MetLife's demand that a policyholder with chronic headaches produce objective evidence of disability. Now, facts matter, as does policy language matter. Many disability policies will have subjective medical conditions such as chronic headaches. And you need to understand that a chronic headache is considered to be subjective. There's no objective diagnostic testing or gold standard to, in fact, diagnose a chronic headache. Many courts will acknowledge that a chronic headache and migraine pain is the type of medical condition that's difficult to diagnose through scans or other diagnostic studies. Yet, many times, disability carriers insist on objective or clinical evidence as a prerequisite for disability, even though the policy may not even require objective proof. And that's what happened in the case of Hamid versus MetLife. Mr. Hamid was the enterprise retail sales manager at the Bank of America. He managed the mortgage department for 8 Bank of America branches, and he managed 10 to 15 employees. He had had headache issues as early as 2000. He had seen a dozen different doctors for these problems. He had seen ENTs, neurologists, allergists, rheumatologists, pain doctors. He had undergone both conservative and invasive treatment. He had multiple nasal surgeries. He had Botox injections. None of it was successful. His medical records documented chronic head and face pain, which was corroborated by family members and coworkers. Ultimately, he had to stop work because of his frequent migraines and the persistent pain that he had. He had pressure in his face, pressure in his head. He had fatigue. He had mental fogginess. And all of that was disabling. So, of course, what did MetLife do? What you would expect MetLife to do. They denied both his short and long-term disability claims on the basis that there was not enough clinical or objective evidence to substantiate his subjective complaints. They even complained that he was exaggerating his symptoms because his doctor had at one point had commented that his symptoms were out of proportion to the exam findings and objective findings. So in reams of medical records, they seize on that comment. Now, every one of their liar for hire doctors opined that there was insufficient evidence of impairment, and MetLife denied the claim. He appealed, and ultimately he filed a lawsuit in federal court. So what did the judge do with the evidence? The judge said it was clear that MetLife had improperly conditioned benefits on the existence of objective evidence, even against the backdrop of his consistent and corroborated reports of chronic pain. So I think this case is important because you'll get a sense of how the court analyzes these types of claims. The first thing the judge did was look at the totality of the evidence and found that Hamid's complaints were credible. The judge, to his credit, noted that the same treating doctor who had commented that his symptoms were out of proportion continued to recommend treatment, including surgeries that he underwent. So the judge reasoned that the continued recommendations for treatment supported the veracity of his symptoms, the extent and nature of those symptoms, the frequency of his symptoms, and the impact that they had on his ability to function. Now, the judge also found objective evidence of disability because there were supporting letters from his treating physicians and statements from family, friends, and even coworkers. These documents established that Hamid was honest about the nature of his symptoms. After the judge found that his symptoms were credible, then the judge closely reviewed the medical records. The judge was looking to see whether there was objective evidence of disability. Now, the judge took MetLife to task, noting that they had misconstrued his lengthy medical history and failed to credit the numerous objective indicators of pain. The judge was also impressed that Hamid had gone to great lengths to relieve his symptoms. He had sought out and gotten pain management treatment from several different kinds of medical specialties. He had undergone Botox injections, allergy injections, multiple surgeries. He had taken powerful medications, including opioids and ketamine. The judge said that the nature and frequency of this treatment were objective evidence of his disability and his impairment. And as a result, the judge found that his symptoms were credible, credited him with the lengths to which he had gotten treatment and the nature of the treatment, and awarded not only short-term disability benefits, but 24 months of own occupation benefits. So the lessons to be learned here are that your medical history counts. The medical treatment that you're getting counts. Statements of your physicians count, and statements about the nature and frequency, intensity of your symptoms from family members, friends, and coworkers count. You can see it can be complex to develop the necessary objective evidence that establishes disability in a chronic migraine claim. Let's take a break. And in our next segment, I'm going to talk about how disability carriers will use the subjective medical evidence trap to try to justify a claims denial.